Ian Moss, welcome back to Australian Musician.
Greg, how are you?
Okay.
Thank you.
You've got a brand new album coming out, Rivers Run Dry, on July 21. Uh,
Yeah.
did you have a concept or a sound in mind for the album as a whole, or was it just a matter of dealing with a new bunch of songs?
I think it's more just yeah, you always I mean, you just start with the songs and you're worried about just getting a decent song out rather than thinking worrying about what the style is. I mean, if it's something I just tend to think, well, if I started writing it, and most of the time I'm it's kind of it's me I'm representing, so just continue on. If I'm enjoying what I'm writing, um, just continue on and concentrate on the main thing, and that is trying to turn your idea into a decent song,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and then stockpile them all and see what happens, and have sit back and have a listen at the end of it. Yeah. So there's quite a variety of kind of styles on this record, but at the same time, I think it feels reasonably cohesive.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Was co-produced with you and Brent Clark. Brent
Yeah.
also engineered. What is it you like about Brent's work?
Um, just a fantastic engineer, very meticulous. Just a guy that gets great sounds, and his attention to detail is stunning. I mean, yeah, that was the original. The idea was I did have someone had lined up someone to as a producer, but then yeah, it didn't happen at the last minute. So it was a case of work. Uh, Unfortunately, they pulled out really late, which wasn't a great feeling at the time. But I just rallied with the rest of the band. Some pretty competent players and competent musicians, and a wealth of experience between Clayton Doley on keyboards, Kerry Jacobson on drums, and Zoe Hauptman on bass. I sort of remember ringing Clayton and telling him of the dilemma of telling me that I'll keep the producers that was to be's name out of it, but kind of he just said there was a pause, and Clayton said, "Do we need him?" And that's for the first time. That's when I started to thought, okay, shit, no. Well, if that's your attitude, and I'm sure the other guys are going to feel the same, I'll just step up to the plate and we'll start doing it together. But then, and that was working fine. But Brent Clark also stepped up to the plate in a big way from just being engineer. Um, and it turned out to be a mighty fine, definitely easily, pulled his weight as far as co-producer goes in a big way.
Yeah. Let's talk through a few of the tracks. Bury Me, which features Kasey Chambers. Did you have a duet in mind when you were writing that song?
Yeah, it was. The song was written. I wrote that in Nashville on a little songwriting trip in about September, October 2019, before the poo hit the fan. With an Australian couple living there,
Yeah,
the O'Sheas, um, and it was just yeah, we just the classic sitting around the lounge room, got any ideas, and me pulling out the list on the iPhone and scrolling through, and so everyone go, oh, let's have a go at that, and so it sat there, and it just it immediately became a duet from the get go. It wasn't. It was always a duet. It was born to be a duet.
yeah.
That song.
There's some gospel influences in some of the backing harmonies, State of My Emotion and Open Your Eyes. Who were the gospel artists that influenced you?
Gospel influences. Well, I guess uh, growing up in Alice Springs was kind of in say from the age of in 1960. Radio was fairly limited, but it did play a lot of country, but then a lot of R&B. I mean, there's always Ray Charles and Sam Cooke and Aretha Franklin, and their big ballads with perhaps with the Ray Conniff singers doing heaps of backing vocals. Powerful influences there. A neighbour across the street had an album that was called Odetta, or no, Harry Belafonte live at Carnegie Hall, and it was very kind of acoustic and vocal and well, gospel. Odetta was one of the singers on this album, and I absolutely loved that album at a really young age. Maybe not 5, maybe, but Burke Street, I don't know, somewhere between 7 and 10. Yeah, probably in a nutshell, there's all there.
Yeah. Another track, Nullable Plain, written with Troy Cassar-Daley. I believe you were a bit unsure about putting that one on the album. Is that right?
First, you get those songs. Occasionally, that always happens in the studio. I think you're gung ho about something, then you get into the studio and start playing it, and you go, maybe not. And then vice versa. I was a little maybe I was a little concerned. I do love my share of specific types of country. Maybe I was concerned that we'd written too much of a country song, but then when we got into the studio and just started playing, it was like, oh, look, it can be, we just went back to the old adage. A great song can be played in any style. It's still a great song. So I just applied more of a rock approach to it, and voila! I think I've got myself a nice up-tempo rocker.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. A Stevie Wonder song you recorded, "Blame It on the Sun," features your son Julian. Is that the first time you've recorded together?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And we've done it live a couple of times, but yeah, this is the first time I've ever recorded that song. I love that song. When first hearing the Talking Book, it was Talking Book. I'm pretty sure it was Talking Book. That album was on when Cole Twizzle first got together and moved to Armidale in about 1973. That record never came off the turntable, probably we might have attempted to play it back in those days, but there were too many. The chords weren't straight enough. The sevenths and minor 7 flat 5 chords and diminished chords. I was like, what the fuck are those things? And we couldn't even figure out how to play it. Very happy with the version, and particularly, I love what Julian and I have done, and I think the band's really come to the fore as well, with Zoe Hauptman up on the upright, and Clayton's piano playing is killer, and Kerry's a funk master, Kerry Jacobson on drums. Right up his alley, no problem at all.
Yeah. Hold On, the Sun Will Rise Again really showcases your guitar playing, I think, more than any other track on the album. Was it always going to be that way, with a focus on the guitar, or you just felt good playing through that track?
It just felt good. I didn't. Well, my favourite guitar player was, the great Jeff Beck, but I didn't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to try and do a track and get really Jeff Beck with it. If I may say, I suggested there's a fair bit of Beck influence, obviously, in there. But hopefully it's still Ian Moss with the Beck influence, and not just that song was written by myself and an Australian guy called Sam Hawksley. Sam was moved to Nashville in about 2012. I was doing some demos for Cole Twizzle's No Plans album, actually, back in early 2011, and I just putting down all the bits and pieces. There were, typically my songwriting up until the last 10 years has been thousands of great ideas all sitting moribund the wrong side of the finishing line, all kicking and screaming, please finish me off. or, and so that was a song. I was demoing at a studio called Love Hurts here in Leichhardt, or Lilyfield, and Sam Hawksley had an interest in that. He just happened to be in the next room, and he could hear the song, and he just stuck his head in at some stage. Oh, do you mind if I've just been listening to you mess around with that idea? How's it going? I said, oh, well, to be honest, I'll explain the whole thing. Another idea, not finished. He said, well, the way I'm hearing it, where you got the verse and the chorus, I think they should be the other way around. That should be the verse, and that should be the chorus. And then suddenly went, boom, opened up, and yeah, we got stuck into that, finished that one off. But just as a nice ballad. But in the end, yeah, pretty happy. I think I agree with you. It's probably the showcase for the album of any guitar playing.
Yeah.
For me, for what that's worth.
Yeah. Are any of your solos planned out, or you just come up with them in the studio?
No, you just they're all ad-libbed off the bat. Really. So yeah. Oh, I mean, well, there's that. We got to hold on. I guess it's just echoing the lead vocal. So it's the only kind of written part of it, if you will. But the rest, and for most of the tracks, I think I can honestly say it's all, you just write the song and then, just ad lib, go for it, try and let loose. That's the whole thing about being in this game and the style of music. It's the joy is that trying to have a vehicle, a great song as a vehicle, which people can always identify with, and you don't mess with the song, but you build within that opportunities to ad lib and come up with something different every time. It'd be pretty boring situation if you had to play exactly note for note what's on the record. But of course, there are things that there are what you might call the quotes or motifs, perhaps, as that might be, that particular melody I just sang for Hold On, which you'll quote or refer to, and then trying to trajectory, take off on that with new ideas on the fly.
You're taking the album out on the road. You're doing 4 electric dates with the band, and then you're following up with some solo dates. What's your stage rig for electric gigs these days?
But he changes every time. I'm still one of these guys is constantly messing around and sort of that close to sort of, like my songs, the wrong side of the finishing line. I'm that close to getting the ultimate guitar sound, aren't we all? But that's something. The gigs it's a month away, and I want to sort of rejig the whole thing again. It's one of those things where I love the sound of 100-watt Marshall, but that is just so fucking loud. And if you've got a big band on stage, it's just killer these days. Also trying to get to. I'm not a person who'd ever got the in-ear thing happening, which would probably solve everything if I could get. Vocals are fantastic with in-ears, but guitars, from my last experience, were terrible. So yeah, just looking at. I've got a couple of things. Quite love a little 15-watt Vox, and I have ways of. That's 15 is just a bit too low. But I've got a system where I can turn that into a 3-way rig where I've got a dry center and left and right, which are a mixture of dry and wet. And so that's like if I run those about equally, there's about 45 watts of amplification, but that's plenty these days. So Vox and usually, and the usual, oversized pedal board. I've been threatening to get back to how I did the first 5 or 6 years of Cold Chisel, and that was no pedals at all, just straight into the amp. That threat's been there for years. It's probably not going to happen for this tour.
Yeah. And you take one or two Friars out with you?
Yeah, well, it's all essentially Stratocaster, whether it be Friars or Fender or other licensed copies. Musicraft have got a lovely Strat, customized somewhat a little bit in the body shape and a couple of other things where the pin attaches and whatever. Reverse bridge pickup. Built by a company in New Jersey, licensed by Fender, called Musicraft. And one another mongrel Telecaster, which is the neck has used to be a luthier company called Rock Repairs in the 70s when I first got to Sydney, and I'd take my guitars in there and they'd have bits and pieces lying around. There's a beautiful old Telecaster neck, and what's the story with that? And I said, oh, well, if we can get a body, you make you a telly out of it if you like. So I bought myself in those days there was a company, the whole spare parts industry was starting up, bits and pieces for guitars, and leading all that was a company called Schecter, and they were building or using all sorts of exotic timbers, including so the body I bought from them was made out of African walnut and it weighs a ton. I did that same for a Strat, and the Strat behaved like you'd expect. It was just, so the wood was so hard it wouldn't resonate. It was just thin, and I got rid of that. But for some reason, the Telecaster went the completely opposite way, and has just become a beautiful, warm, raw ROAR to it that every person comments on it when I pick up that guitar. And it's got EMG pickups in it. And it's one of those things you think, oh, you can't, EMG, you can't, that's a bit uncool. But it's one of those things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which I've done with just about every fucking thing else I've owned with amplifiers and guitars.
One of your most earliest, or maybe the first encounter you had with Greg Fryer was fixing a neck on a broken 60s Stratocaster. I believe there was an altercation with Ian Ryland. Are you able to tell the full story? What went down there?
Yeah, fuck it, embarrassing as it was, and certainly regret it happening. It's just I think the gig we were at Shell Harbour, and it was a 3-piece thing. It was a good rocking band. It had Paul DeMarco from Rose Tattoo on drums, and Ian Ryland on bass. It'd been a long tour. I guess we were starting to get tired, and it was fantastic working with Ian. The vibe. It was just a 24-hour, 24/7 circus. Never a dull moment. Just so much fun. But it was just one of these things. We got to the end of the night and doing one of those big rock sort of, shoulder to shoulder, back to back, waiting to go clump to finish the thing off. And thank you, good night. But then, I don't know, I think Ian nearly pushed me right over, and a couple of times I kind of got the shits on it. And through one of my low quality, threw a bit of a roundhouse kick at him, and he said, "Oh yeah," fucking, and must have hurt a bit because he fucking had a go at me. So then next week we're wrestling and tussling, and the guitars are still turned up full, going bang, clang, bang. Must look, audience like, oh, what a great show. Well, we were deadly serious. And next thing I know, Ian just went fucking down at the speed of light. I don't know how whether I did that or what happened, but bashed his head on the fucking monitor box and knocked himself out. And I I was so embarrassed the whole thing. I just turned around and fucking walked off stage, and then we've done. Then I turned around and the crew guy at the time, I just saw him picking up my guitar in one hand with the headstock broken. I go, oh, fuck. And then picking up Ian Ryan and putting him over his shoulder. Oh, fuck. I did, because I didn't realise it hurt himself that bad. So it was, he was all right. The guitar wasn't. The fact that he was all right was probably more important. Just and we made up and and had a good laugh about it in later years.
You've recently just got back from the UK. How did it go?
Really well. It's like starting again. Small clubs, some of the small cold clubs. Like plenty of carton gear up narrow brick stairways and tiny cement stages, but it was good. It was just it was it felt back to the beginning. It was, that's the thing they say. The real fun is getting there rather than making it. If you're fortunate enough to make it, it's getting there, and it's kind of felt like that again. Good, nice sellout at the beautiful 100 Club in London. Oran Moore. Could have sworn I was saying that right, but they kept correcting me. No, that's what I said. No, Oran Moore. That's what I said. No, you didn't. But it was a fantastic room in Glasgow, and that went really well, and just fantastic reviews everywhere. It's kind of late in the career, but got to keep going, and so I look forward to getting back there and capitalising on how well it went in the near future.
Yeah. So you've got Australian dates through to the end of the year. Have you got plans yet for 2024?
Just looking at some probably. A lot of it's going to just depend. We're sort of trying to. You got to definitely put some plans in place, and so a lot of that will be. I will go back to. I really love to stay electric, but the scene and economics tell me I need to go back and do an acoustic run late this year, and probably continue that into next year. But the other thing is just waiting to see how we go with this album. It seems to be off to a good start. It seems to be being well received, getting some airplay from radio. If it goes well, I'd be jump at any chance I can to sort of just stay electric and keep promoting the album with the band.
Yeah. So it's Rivers Run Dry. It's out July 21. It's a great album. Congratulations, and we'll catch you next time.
Right, thanks, mate. Good to talk to you again.